fixed dose, 1 to 2 milligrams let's have about 10 micrograms or less. Just to explain this bit, Prof. Dunne was an author on a recent study which was very interesting and looked at microdosing and essentially found that the group taking microdosing improved their psychological parameters, but so did the group taking placebo treatment. In fact, there was no statistical difference in the psychological outcomes between the two groups. And it wasn't a perfect study, and it's very challenging. Second, but it was very interesting to me that the first, or at least an attempt to look at microdosing with a control, because up to now we've just had uncontrolled studies, which, and I'm sure you know if you've seen many videos on this channel before, may be informative in some capacity, but they can't tell you whether it's categorically. So the first study that's attempted to do this has actually shown that about at least 90% of the effect is placebo effect, which I found very interesting. The study results were actually fascinating. I wonder if you could tell us about it.
Yeah, so this was impossible because the drug laws in this country have a single molecule of LSD. So here's a interesting thing. 4 years ago, I got permission to do microdosing LSD, 10 micrograms, twice a week for 6 weeks. Yes, it's what people are doing. So you have to come in, get the 10 micrograms, and it's a microdose, and then at least 8 hours. We said, well, nothing will happen, we said, no. And costing that up, which we couldn't afford to do it because we were buying rooms in hospitals, expensive hospitals to have. So we've never done that. And no one has done a proper microdosing study because no one can afford to comply with regulation. It is completely absurd. But anyway, so how could we get around that? Well, what we did, this guy, Baba Sageti, he was a physicist who's been working on some statistical problems for a while, and he said, look, I have a plan. We can do microdosing, we can get people who are going to microdose, we can work out a way where they can random, they can separate their active from 10. We will then randomize their own. They have to do it at home. And we went with this and so we did it. But the clever twist to it was the people had to guess what they were taking. And they were left to placebo. And what was really, so I suppose the core finding is that if you hold the I think you had a problem. But if you thought you're taking placebo, so the expectation was a reasonable effect. So microdosing is basically worked if you are microdosing. If you believe in the microdose, is it a placebo effect? Maybe it is. Maybe it's some kind of potential. And we've found a little suggestion in multi-dose. But mostly you can get out of it. Then that is finding most of medicine. Most people want to get better, so you've got to facilitate it.
Well, Professor David Nutt, thank you so much for generously giving me your time. I don't know if there's any particular signal message you want to try to get out there. As I mentioned earlier, I'd recommend anyone to listen to your podcast, look at the Drug Science website, and you have a huge body of work writing. One of your books are right here, really behind you.
If you want to learn more, it's all in my autobiography.
There you go.
Yeah, feel free. We haven't talked about being attacked by the anti-Vivs yet, but we'll do that another time.
I mean, there's loads we could have got into. I'm also really fascinated by your work of combined harms of drugs, and we could talk for an whole hour on just alcohol alone. But alas,
Another time. It's been really nice to talk to you. Thank you. You've researched it extraordinarily well.
Very nice.
Did you have a
I shot a Q&A for 300,000 subscribers back in November 2020, but where did it come from? Okay, but I never got around to editing and uploading it. Work's been pretty busy over the last few months. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't made news, to be honest. But to make up for my lateness, I've shot another 350,000 subscriber Q&A with a fresh set of questions, and I've combined them both here. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula, which is a stream platform that I co-founded. We're trying something new. We're kind of putting director's cuts called Nebula Plus on there. So for YouTube, I have to trim things down to an algorithm-friendly length, but on Nebula, your length doesn't matter. At least that's what my wife tells me. So stay tuned to the end to find out how to get that. But now on to the questions, and as usual, I hadn't seen any of these before shooting. Well, it's Q&A time. If you had asked me a few months ago about channels that do frequent Q&As, I would have said that they're rather conceited. My opinion hasn't changed. But nevertheless, you have asked for this. Number 3, Q&A. The previous 2 have been explicitly popular, even though I literally put in the title that it was unhelpful, only useless answers. And I'm going to maintain that tradition as well. We'll get to it in a second. I've got one disclaimer apart from that to say that I'm not going to any personal medical questions. Sometimes people have a disclaimer on my friend as XYZ. Stay clear of those. I'm also going to keep this enough. So let's get to it. 1,650 comments. I don't think we're going to get to Christina, what it is that difference between American and doctors like what is an attending? Why isn't everyone attending? Are they missing? Thank you, Christina. I feel like you're going to be setting the tone for the quality of comments to these questions, which is outrageous. What must I be doing on this channel? Well, there's not a great deal of difference between American doctors, to be honest. American doctors learn much more than UK doctors, but UK doctors still earn a good salary, so I'm not too fussed about that. UK training is a bit different. We graduate from medical school earlier in our lives than in America because we go straight out of school into medical school, and that can be 5 or 6 years long. Or there is a similar system in America where you can read there 4 years of medical school, which is what everyone in America does it that way. And American residency is shorter than the equivalent UK residency. You specialize in your field and your training in just that area. One could take that to mean that American doctors are less experienced, but actually residency is really brutal in most specialties in America. You work really hard, longer hours than you do. You've got directed time, crazy hours, so it's a lot better than it used to be. So you probably pack in a similar amount of actual hours on the job, even though we work on that stuff all the time. Yeah, that's fine. We also do more general training, so we do these at least 2 years. Often we rotate through different specialties, where in America you come straight out into the chosen field all the time. So I also think that's quite nice and the general background. But once you get to the cardiologist in the UK, cardiologist in America, and I have lots of my friends over there, we're all pretty much the same. Ruben, what's the heart's worst design flaw that you would change if you could, if there is any? That's right. There is absolutely no design flaw to the heart. It's perfect. Don't let the fact that heart disease kills more people than anything else in the world fool you. That's deliberate. Yeah, okay, fine. The heart has a major design flaw. By the way, when I say design, I'm taking this. I know it wasn't designed. Some people took that literally, but I've said in previous videos, it evolved. The big flaw of the heart, I would say, is the fact that this amazing muscle that has to pump all the time, can't take a break, is supplied by 2 piddly little arteries. attacks, and they really are hidden in an average person between 3 to 5 millimeters in width. So they often, well, that's what a heart attack is, one on the right side of the heart, and then one on the left, which splits into two. So it's often described as 3 arteries, but it's really technically 2. If one blocks, the area of muscle that's supplied dies. Whereas that's not the case for all mammals. Dogs, for example, have the blood supply where if you block off one coronary artery, the other one still supplies the overlap of the muscle. So dogs actually have far smaller heart attacks if they were to block off a coronary artery, which makes them quite bad models for research into human heart disease, which is good for dogs, bad for pigs. Because pigs are commonly used to study heart disease, along with mice, of course, which are ubiquitous in biology labs all around the world. And it's handy, really, to use pigs rather than dogs. They're a lot tasty. I'm kidding. We don't eat pigs, just the mice. Only the Best asks, as a cardiac doctor surgeon, are you scared of heart attacks? Well, that would make it unworkable. As in, you get some. Okay, no, I'm not really. We do get a lot of patients around my age now, in fact, younger than me, quite commonly, people in their 20s or early 30s. They uniformly are smokers. I haven't met anyone around my age who's had a heart attack who is not a smoker. So that makes me a bit reassured. I don't smoke, and that's a huge risk factor taken out of the equation. I'm also quite lucky in that there isn't much heart disease in my family. If anything, I'll probably die of cancer. Most people, statistically, it's going to be one or the other. So in my case, I'm more worried about cancer. But even then, I'm not really that worried. I've got this kind of Wolverine delusion that I've just become completely unbreakable. Luna, I'm a med student that recently got diagnosed with a rare arrhythmia. I even got a sweet subcutaneous implantable defibrillator for it. So subcutaneous implantable defibrillator is a box that goes just under the skin here, sort of almost under the arm, and there's a little lead that's tunneled under the skin to here. That then creates a shock vector between this coil and the box. So if somebody goes into a cardiac arrest, the box will automatically deliver a shock and save their life, hopefully. Luna is a med student, I'm assuming they are young. We tend to use these in young patients more often because they don't need to have any pacing done to the heart. Whereas when we put a defibrillator that goes in through the veins, actually inside the heart, that tends to be where we may need to deliver some other therapy to the heart. Subcutaneous pacemakers have probably been around for about 10 years or so, they're pretty new. The question is, would I be entitled to cheesy jokes if I became a cardiologist? It could be totally interesting. It could be very useful saying firsthand to patients that the defibrillator rarely fails. When it does, they're really not that shocked. Okay, not that shocked. Or maybe the patients wouldn't really be in pain. Well, now you get that joke because I just explained it. Oh God, I really am pumping this for audience. Thanks, Luna. I disapprove of puns. I don't make them. I don't like them. You know, I once had a friend called Dee, and she used to make a lot of puns. And then she was savagely beaten by radical fundamentalists and in hospital. I'm joking. It's a lie. It's a thing. I got interrupted. Right. There's the Jambo asks, what winner? 100 Duckside cardiologist, 1 Duckside anesthetist. I'll spin on the old Reddit question there. Is an anesthetist that is the size of a T-Rex, or an anesthetist that is a T-Rex? Because how would you intubate anyone as a T-Rex? Imagine intubating a T-Rex. I have seen vet colleagues intubating all manner of different animals. I have no idea how to do it. It's crazy, very impressive. Maybe intubating an alligator would be the closest kind of thing to that. Anesthetists are famous for 3 things: Lycra, cycling, and Sudoku. Okay, also maybe being obsessed with coffee. That's really common to both doctors. So I don't know how a T-Rex would play Sudoku. But I would say that duck-sized cardiologists, because a duck-sized cardiologist is by definition quack. And quacks have unlimited power because if you strike one down, 3 spring off the place. Lassie, glasses. As an electrician, I know the dangers related related to electrical accidents. Many times we're turned away by ER because it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong. That mistake prevents fatal for a small number of people whose heart rhythm doesn't return to normal after electrical shock and they die in their sleep. Insight from an expert. Well, can't find an expert, but I'll give it a shot. Everyone's asking me really long questions today. I wouldn't want to comment on any particular case of people being turned away from the emergency room after an electric shock. Electric shocks, of course, affect the heart, but they tend to do that immediately. If you get shocked, you can go into electrical fibrillation or something like that, and it can be fatal. That's how people often die from electric shocks. But it doesn't tend to be a lasting electrical problem. What may have happened in this case is there can be other issues caused by a major electric shock, which manifested later, like burns or internal trauma or bleeding, that kind of thing. I don't know. Oh, the other thing that's important with that is we do normally keep people in the hospital for a while after electric shock observation. Control Plan EPU. As a paramedic in training, who's been struggling with ECLS, advanced cardiac life support. Why can stimulation of the vagus cause the patient to go asystolic, asystolic? Sorry, I don't know how so what that translates as, why can stimulating the vagus nerve cause a person's heart to slow or even stop temporarily? Good question. The vagus nerve is one of the cranial nerves, a very important, unusual nerve. It's called the vagus wanderer because it takes this kind of meandering path all the way from the head down to the gut to form the innervates of the heart. And stimulating the vagus nerve can be done in various different ways. I'm not going to spell them out because I don't want people experimenting on themselves, but you want to know how to Google. The vagus is part of the autonomic nervous system, so it increased vagal stimulation increases parasympathetic tone, and that slows the heart down, reduces blood pressure. And so that is the mechanism by which it normally works, but in some people it can be extra sensitive, and the stimulation of the vagus nerve can cause a precipitous drop in blood pressure or a rapid drop in the heart rate, the faint, engaged. Don't phase fast. It's problems with health workers' mental health going to be a normal thing? How big of a problem is it, and what can we do about it as a society? Well, we live in a society. Every time, on the punchline, it's all kicking off today. Well, I don't know how much of this I'm going to get to do, but we'll keep trying. It's very busy. I normally actually film on nights, because they're generally a little bit quieter. But it's actually a day shift this time, and I thought I'd give it a try. I know you can't tell the window that it's a day shift, because it's November in the UK, so it gets dark around the time it gets light. Nathan Holt, I recognise that name from the previous one. Richard Dawkins once claimed to have seen two dogs doing a 69. Hello? Yeah. Echo machine. Big one, echo. It's not going to work today. Quite interesting patient. What's the worst line you've ever told to impress someone? Probably that I graduated from medical school. Matthias Lund. What are the things that it's true but you wish it didn't work? Good question. I guess we can answer it in many ways. I'll give a slightly frivolous answer and a serious one. The frivolous or personal answer is that the fields that I find most interesting also seem to be the ones with the worst lifestyle. As someone who is naturally of an extremely lazy disposition and kind of doesn't really like work, I wish that I found something like general practice, family medicine more interesting. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's got a timetable which is much more flexible. You can have a job where you work a few days a week, 3 days a week, and then do other things in your spare time. Whereas really sick patients that I always find myself drawn to looking after, they're the job of up in the middle of the night, do lots of night shifts and all that kind of crap. And the more serious answer that I think I wish wasn't true in medicine, but it is that unfortunately a lot of the things we do are far less beneficial than I think we believe. And I think there are lots of interventions we perform automation really improve their lives by a negligible amount, or they don't prolong their lives by anywhere near as much as we think. That's for a multitude of reasons. This was meant to be like some jokey Q&A like the other ones, and you're asking all these serious questions. Simply God, I'll soon be a teacher. Good for you. Great job. Students are increasingly teaching themselves with the internet. What can we do as educators to prevent our students from being trapped by conspiracy and misinformation? I'd like to know from a perspective of health and science. What did I just say about asking me serious questions and getting too intense? Okay, good question. I'm not going to be able to answer satisfactorily now. It's very tough. Like, people say education is key and teaching the scientific method, and of course that's very important. But we've seen from this year in COVID that a lot of the people who are spreading this information themselves have got proper scientific credentials. I'm not talking about people with some Mickey Mouse degrees from an online university claiming to be epidemiologists. I mean, people who really know what they're talking about, still getting tricked and fooled by bad stats or allowing their biases to dictate their thinking. So I'm not sure that education alone is the key. What I believe the future of education is going to look like is the online media that is going to be delivering nuts and bolts, the bare bones content. And what I think schools and universities should become more of, and I'm not saying this like I'm some visionary, it's something that a lot of people say, is a place to consolidate those ideas, discuss them in an open, safe space. Only by having those discussions about the things that people read online will we be able to challenge those misconceptions at an early age. Yep. In summary, I don't think I've got any particularly original thoughts on that. It's just such a huge and important question. I think perhaps one of the biggest challenges facing society is how we stop the spread of misinformation online. Faraz Alam says, if you're a med student, how would you prevent yourself from tripping over wires on the floor in the room? Maybe just try not doing that. The sentient neuron, how many organs functions can the life support in a hospital take over? Do we have even better techniques currently undergoing trials? Is undergoing trials? Yes, there are some exciting things being researched. If you're interested, why not look up the International Association of Artificial Organs, which is quite a small group of people and organizations around the world that focuses on this. And I've long wanted to make a video talking about the quest for an artificial heart. It's actually been one of the first ideas I had, but I haven't done it up till now because I really want to do a good job, and there are some technical things that are out of my reach at the moment. So now I'm kind of getting to the stage where I'm able to play an animator or something like that. So I think it's such a fascinating story to tell about why we still haven't replaced the heart. When people say, oh, it's just a pump, isn't that something simple? We still haven't got to the stage where we can replace it, and actually the reasons are very interesting. The liver, of course, cannot be replaced. You saw the tier list video, you'll know what I think of the liver. The kidneys, dialysis has existed for a long time, but again, that's a poor surrogate. Ventilators can do the job of the lungs. You can have temporary cardiac support in the form of bypass or extracorporeal ventilation and ventricular assist devices. We have artificial pancreases, and there are all kinds of promising new synthetic tissues and organs that are being researched. And of course, one of them that they're doing is with a machine is the brain, ballistic unless you scan my brain to a computer. White Ether asks, what professional interactions do you have with engineers trying to solve medical issues? A lot of my friends are biomedical students, and they are uncertain how close they'll be to medicine once they're working in the industry. Well, it's unreasonable to try and avoid engineers, isn't it? Just common sense. Okay, I'm kidding. I have worked with engineers on the engineers. My research was actually involving, actually, I did work very closely with the background. They were essentially a physicist specializing in a cardiac MRI. Oh yeah, we're going to take it, but I think the something that we saw negative, you said one negative, it was just bring it down. course you are the person, do you keep a collection of preserved hearts or mad scientists in family? Sorry, you can't use terms like mad scientist anymore. That is hate speech. Prefer the term dialogue. Muffin, do you feel that doing a PhD was valuable for some time? Let's get this one. Gavin asks, do you think this one will be colon? And asked my father is desperate for a new one. Some sort of punctuation. There is an operation called the collective colon when you're important to a different name. And it's evidence of the fact that if you spend your entire time doing the vowels, you lose sense of humour because they miss the all your brain colon. Benjamin Stevens has heard of the channel. Well, if you haven't really got to share, like having personnel pointers, a little bit more of cardiac patients. Nothing really fine. I get a little fed up with the ones compared to the hard time for ECG because that's just one part of the paramedics job. I've loads of other things that you need to know about. I always try and explain it in a friendly way. It's heart tracing and generally after time and around the paramedics the healthcare professional I found consistently on doctors, which is quite interesting. Staff for the nurse and the heart what we call it confident applies to things. If somebody hasn't said I'm pumpy boy, hearty my partners, really drops, alright, fair enough. Notorious love love. I would call it the box. Claire said, why am I nice one to phrase up lights on face? Use up chiropractic can't well know. Because I don't misinterpret this to find that I can bring chiropractic chance. That's not what I mean. Chiropractic itself, for a start, is chiropractic, is based on pseudoscience. At its heart, it is a pseudoscientific, nonsensical system. That doesn't mean every practitioner who is a chiropractor practices pseudoscience. Some seek out evidence-based treatments and they utilize therapies that a good physical therapist would use as well. And I'm sure that they do the treatments in their own area of expertise and they don't get carried away by certain chiropractors who feel that they can treat anything in the body just by manipulating the spine, which is of course nonsense.
David, how long have you been filming for?
Welcome to part 2 of the video. To visually demarcate the two halves, I decided to start growing a beard at the beginning of tonight's night shift, so tell that footage that you've just been watching was recorded a little while ago. I never got around to editing the footage just through lack of time, but any time I posted any other video, there was a small but vocal minority of people just like anti-vaxxers that make it difficult and unpleasant for everybody else. I'm joking. I do appreciate that even if I don't understand, there are some people who want to see these Q&A videos. So there was this small vocal minority who would angrily post after everything that I put up, where's the Q&A video? So I figured, fine, I'll make it finally. I went back to look at that footage for the first time and found that a lot of the questions were a little bit serious. So I asked you again this week to give me some slightly more fun questions, and that's what we're going to get to now. Before we do that, I just want to say that if you do want to support the channel, which obviously I hugely appreciate, instead of something like Patreon, what I always suggest is just listening to the end for the sponsor message, because you can get a year of Curiosity Stream and Nebula for only $15 using my code, so please just stay tuned till the end. So, to the questions. Marcus Aldorn asks, if you can have less blood with more blood pressure and everything be fine, what is the minimum amount of blood you can have and not die? Okay, well, remember I mentioned I was doing a Royal Institution talk, which I hope should be online by the time this goes out. One of the cases that I talked about, it was about extremes of physiology, was a patient that I treated in St George's in South London who was a young mother. She'd just given birth. She'd had catastrophic loss of blood, and her hemoglobin was 9 grams per litre, and a normal hemoglobin for a woman should be about 120. So she was, way, way down on the amount of blood. I've never seen anything near that low. The lowest that I could find in the literature was 6 grams per litre of hemoglobin. So not far off. But the other thing is, it's not just about the red blood cells, it's also about blood volume, so how much plasma there is, and how rapidly losses occur. So if you have a gradual reduction in blood cells, the body can auto-resuscitate, it can ensure that your plasma volume increases. And if that happens, particularly in a young person, they can go to extremely low levels of hemoglobin and still be apparently normal. But if you lose volume rapidly, so like rapid blood loss, then it's more about hypovolemia rather than the actual content of the blood. And you probably don't need to lose that much. Again, it depends on your age and fitness, but I guess that something like a loss of 2 liters could be fatal. Your total circulating blood volume is about 5 liters. The body can move fluid from fluid compartments into intravascular space. That takes time. Another case that I talked about was Mauro Prosperi, who had got lost during the Marathon des Sables in Morocco in 46-degree heat, and required 16 liters of intravenous fluid when he was found and resuscitated. The human body can do incredible things with a significantly reduced volume, and it's all about how quickly it's lost. Jeevan Kumar asks, do you still perform your daily rituals / pujo to Tom Scott, or was that a one-time thing? I'm not sure what you're suggesting there, that I would make up a joke for a video. Doesn't sound like me. No, of course, it wasn't a one-time thing. I've continued my daily worship. In fact, it's blossomed into a full-blown religion. Some people call it a cult, and that's slander, frankly. And we've got a temple. It's in East London. And if you make a journey to the temple, then you can be called a Scott pilgrim. Banana asks, people whose heart isn't beating are dead, therefore people whose heart has been restarted are undead. How does it feel to be a necromancer who has raised an army of zombies? How do you know I'm not undead? I said, undead? Who came up with the name undead? It's just so lazy. Boss, I've just imbued life into this dead tissue, raised this man from the grave. What shall we call this hideous creation? I don't know, let's call him undead. Neve says, it looks like you stole my little brother's plastic sunglasses. Did you, or did you not? Oh no. I did. Unfortunately, your little brother came along with the sunglasses. We didn't need him, he was superfluous. We had no choice but to harvest his spleen. It fetched a good price on the black market. His heart was removed and offered to Kukul Khan. And then we reanimated his corpse. And he's undead, and now he won't be a chapter. N. Berger asks, what is historically the worst way of treating an illness that you've heard of? Oh, there are loads. I mean, it's hard to look past things like trepanning, that like a hole in the head. You've got to love putting heroin and cocaine in kids' treatments. Mercury. You can find lots of crazy treatments that were particular to certain healers, often involving small animals and orifices, weird things like that. But out of the kind of widely accepted practices in fairly recent history, I'd say the two most shocking were hemiglossectomy for speech impediments, so cutting out half the tongue, people with a stutter, and lobotomies that were done with basically just a long needle or ice pick, either in the nose or in the eye socket in a non-anesthetized patient. This was done in the 20th century. If you don't know the story, look up JFK's younger sister. There's a really horrendous scandal story of how she was rendered severely disabled after having this procedure, and it was kind of hushed up at the time. But Deadson asks if it were possible to create cyborgs which would restore the human body greatly relaxed. Superpowers also can. When people ask about superpowers, there are all these geeky answers that geeky people come up with, like to be able to manipulate the strong nuclear force or to control entropy. I'm a simple man, and I find it hard to look beyond just having a cyborg super strength punch. Just a punch that just is harder than anything else on the planet. Bam! Settles all arguments, all problems, all settled with a straight right. Can you use a duck in a medical environment, and if so, how? Only if you're flag. Where's the top answer? Wow, that's a good question. Cheek. Is it? Am I wrong to assume you have not got a tons of experimental surgery like century? You are not wrong. I would have liked it. It's my favorite era in medical history. Quite to know one of the it's like top 3 medical big hospital. I think it would have been everything. I enjoy generally around something down in the tiny area, but today I work no energy of health reports, and even though I'm not like if I want to KTV whining to come back home after had that long course. Is it really the formaldehyde, or should I be running for the hills? Well, that's I would never think like that. I don't know. I used to get hungry after dissection. It's a well-known phenomenon. I'm not unlucky in that. I don't know why. If anyone's got any interesting theories that go beyond just rampant, blatant cannibalism. Ricardo Perez, why are dermatologists sexier than cardiologists? Well, you probably assume that I'm going to get offended by that, but actually, I agree. Number one, when you look like me, you learn early in life that looks are not going to get you very far, hence why I've got such a sparkling personality. Secondly, I've always thought the dermatologists are the best looking doctors. Right from medical school, I remember them being very glamorous and good looking. So much so that one of my very close friends, who I met when we were doing our first house job straight out of medical school, and she's stunningly good looking, very stylish. And so way back then, we were chatting, and she said, I don't know what I want to do. Nothing's really jumped out at me. And purely because I thought that she would belong in that glamorous crowd, I said, you should do dermatology. And now she's a consultant dermatologist. And that's on me. I did that. Asks, it's maybe not funny, but simply something I don't understand. Why do I get a red head when I'm upside down? Because all the blood flows in my head, but why don't we walk around with uncomfortable red feet and the need to lie down? Well, because we have evolved in the same gravitational conditions that we find ourselves today, more or less, and to walk upright. So our bodies are designed to snack. It's my 4th night shift. Please cut me some slack. I'm allowed to treat myself. As we've established before on this channel, calories in the night shift don't count. And besides, I'm going to sprinkle statins all over the top of pizza, so it's really actually doing me good. We evolved to walk upright, so our legs are used to dealing with gravity acting on our blood, pulling it downwards, and there's sufficient resistance from the leg muscles and surrounding tissue to ensure that blood doesn't pool normally. Whereas our head, the heart has to work to get blood against gravity to go up there. So if you flip it upside down, there's no mechanism to prevent blood pooling in the head because it's not designed to do that. It's a bit like saying, why are the soles of our feet different to the palms of our hands? Because we don't tend to walk on our Dingus153, do you plan on exploiting the algorithm to sell your own brand of completely organic, harm-free, homeopathic coconut oil-infused scrubs? What are homeopathic scrubs? Is that like Emperor's new clothes? I frequently, twice, post on Instagram about my lucrative sponsorship deal with this luxury scrubs brand. It's called the Hospital Laundry Room, and I'm one of the brand ambassadors. And this beautiful hepatitis C blue number is available with a multitude of bloodborne diseases infused into the fabric. Is at this point about 50% COVID It's completely ill-fitting, and it feels a bit like starched flannel on the skin. But there's a tremendous amount of freedom of movement in the trouser area, which is pleasant for airflow, especially in the summer. I don't know, where am I going with this? So those party to the joke here. There's a trend of medical influencers advertising scrubs, which in the UK we find particularly bizarre because nobody has their own scrubs here. We get scrubs from hospital laundry room, and that ensures that they're well washed every time at high temperatures and everything, rather than in a domestic washing machine. So we don't tend to buy our own scrubs here, but it's very popular in the States, it seems. I might have a video in the works about medical influencers. Alex Bevan asks, how do you cope with the expectations of intellectual grandeur that are assumed of medical doctors? I see them. Joaquin Peña Gallardo, great name. In your hospital, you're like a celebrity, or just are you like a celebrity, or just a YouTube guy? Actually, we all know that you never worked in a hospital and you're a stripper or something. It's time to tell the truth, mate. Yes, I'm the world's first stripper, pays to keep their clothes on. Am I the celebrity or just the YouTube guy? I'm definitely not a celebrity in the hospital, nothing like it. I think, yeah, my immediate team take the piss and know me as the YouTube guy. I get a lot of rants, gentle teasing. And actually, now that I've started doing this gig with Radio 4, the national radio in the UK, BBC, doing a few little on their health program, some of the older generation at work are aware of the things that I do. So, comments. Yes, I had an interesting experience. I boarded my automobile and was listening to the wireless on Radio 4, and I thought, by Jove, I recognize that blighter, that voice. It's Francis. Well met. Yes, with Genevieve Williams. How are you? How is life at your hospital? Fine. Good. Max helped. When are you going to quit playing at cardiologist, get that Gymshark sponsorship, and become a full-time influencer? Max, I think you might have got me confused with another British Asian doctor from the Cambridge area. Would life be easier if humans had an exoskeleton like bugs? I mean, there wouldn't be skin. Well, speaking my language here because everybody knows how much I hate skin. But then again, would that be any easier? I mean, to do any surgery, you'd have to get out a circular saw every time. Cut through the carapace, is that the right word? I don't think I know enough about insect biology to comment on the pros and cons, but I think for a human it would just be immensely heavy, wouldn't it? Tiago Alves, if you were the Prime Minister, how would you have handled the pandemic differently? Mate, that's an enormous question. There are many things. If I had to choose one, I think one of the key mistakes has been the UK government just locking down with no exit strategy. And it's led to everybody getting fed up with lockdown and all these people protesting about it. And you can understand that to an extent because they've just locked down repeatedly and waited for cases to die down and then just opened up again instead of having a proper test and trace system. PMX, will you ever star as a guy presenting to the emergency room in the Chubby Emu episode, or would that break you to you? The Emu and I have been trying to meet up for a while, obviously pandemic, any chance. That would be cool. The gosh darn Batman, how do we know organs are real if we can't see them? Well, your eyes are organs, but I guess you can't see your eyes. Whoa. Jaden Smith, NGM, since you've become a doctor, have you cut down on unhealthy foods and drinks? Yes, Ruben, what is your favorite alcoholic drink? Does your job make you want to drink more often? I really only drink 2 drinks. It's on the scientific alcoholic now repertoire. Whiskey, nice whiskey, and beer, and that's it. And to be honest, I only drink very rarely, maybe 2 or 3 drinks a month. Yes, in medicine there is a lot of alcoholism, a lot of substance dependence and abuse, and all kinds of counterproductive coping strategies with the stressful job. So yeah, for sure in medicine that's common, but thankfully not in my case. Dingus again, what stats get boosted the most by orange clothing? All of them. Acuity, knowledge, recall, skill, everything.
18歳眼睛
all from wearing orange. Medical fact. Mike Pierce, have you saved any more people on planes you have been on since the last time you made a video? Mike, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but not many flights have been happening, at least not by responsible people. SM, if robots rise up, would people with lethal in them survive? No, I'd imagine they'd be the first to be killed, to retrieve that sweet, sweet metal corner. How is it to have an IQ in 4 digits, such as yourself? It's good. Well, talking of IQ, maybe I'll finish up this, now let's wrap up. Because I recently found a report card for, well, a few report cards for myself at different ages, but one when I was 7, which was pretty hilarious. It was really quite brutal and said that I was very naughty, misbehaved, very disruptive, and really underperformed. And my mum was clearly freaked out by this, particularly, I guess, because my elder brother has very severe learning disabilities, and then she got this report saying that I'm doing really badly in school, and I guess she freaked out. So the next thing filed along with it was a psychological analysis from a child psychologist, including sort of measuring my IQ and stuff. And now I've started this, there's no real way to say it without it sounding like a humble brag, but you know, I mean, my IQ is sort of off the charts. And you know, ADHD wasn't really known as a thing back then, I guess, not commonly. And I guess the point I wanted to say with this is, when I put it on Twitter, one of my friends said, "Oh, you just shut off." But then I got some really nice replies from people who are at school or at medical school who are going through similar things. It really got worse for me in my teenage years. I actually got suspended. And I felt like I would maybe try and mention it in a video then, because there may be people watching who also feel as though school, whose minds work in slightly different ways, who are neurodivergent is the term these days. And don't lose heart, because one day you too could be an influencer on YouTube, selling coconut-infused homeopathic scrubs and pretending to be a doctor. There is a version of this video on Nebula. It's a bit longer because I've left questions that I've cut out here in, and I've also removed the next bit, which is the sponsor read. If you do want to support this channel, it's really the best way. But you can get a year of access to CuriosityStream, which is home to thousands of really nice, high-quality documentaries, as well as Nebula, which is a streaming platform for indie creators that I co-founded. Is the COVID quite severe? Are they intubated or anything? Obviously, COVID can affect the heart. I think I'm insert both of those with caution. I don't think I'd change anything. No worries. Okay, thanks. Okay. What was that? Yes, so you get access to both for a whole year for only $15, not per month, but the whole year. CuriosityStream, I spent a week on TikTok recently for a bit of chance to read a few TikToks. I didn't like the effect it has about reducing attention span, so I decided to go completely in the opposite direction. And CuriosityStream have this really nice section of feature-length documentaries, proper professionally made titles of all different topics. There's one which I had seen before, and I watched it again because it's really good, Particle Fever, which is all about love and it's got some balance between theoretical physicists and it's just really good. And then of course Nebula, you probably know by now, has got a lot of your favourite creators here as well. And as I said, we're moving to a model where we can longer directly run version videos on there and have to shorten them down to YouTube. So please take a look and use the code MedLive to sign up. I'm off to try and catch a few of these. I agreed to do a full day of work tomorrow as well. mostly are very so I investigate some of the triggers been very checks on how videos from Ross, Brent Rogers, calmly speaking, and of course, Bob Secret animal discovery, great condition. I was confused by all these people dressing up like sexual. Like, just no, like, frankly, not this good. Let's take
to produce chills. So these are the chills that some people get, everybody, where they listen to some piece of music and they get goosebumps to the head, standing on their those things that are data related. ASMR is also more commonly associated with something called misophonia, which means taking things out. So this is an experience with condition where people experience extreme anger and irritation comes that sounds like chewing sounds. Actually, quite a lot of sounds are ASMR well, it's quite different. So there's this idea that potentially ASMR have quite some sensory sensitivity. Our research, we noticed that there seems to be this kind of this interesting pattern to the responding approach. You get a reduction in heart rate, but you're getting more response. So you're getting this kind of mixed emotional kind of response that is also reflected in people's subjective views. So people are telling us that they're feeling relaxed and activated at the same time, and this points to the kind of emotional complexity of it. So as somebody who's interested in emotions, we normally think about emotions being represented in a space that comprises valence, so positivity, negativity, and arousal. So the idea that it's both arousing and deactivating at the same time is something that's quite interesting from the perspective of emotional complexity. Touch is one of the biggest ASMR triggers, which I think is not that when you're watching on the screen. So touch is probably the main ASMR trigger, one of the things. But what I find really interesting about the relationship with touch is that what this actually gets is a tactile response, because you're getting sort of tingling sensation itself. There's one in the spark, but you're getting that from the trigger which is from you. So this is kind of an aesthetic response that's going on. So we are sort of speculating at the moment, and trying to test this when we can, that there is a link between the benefits that we can get from ASMR and the benefits from the
Much of the major ASMR popularity obviously the pandemic has exerted isolation, not because of the quality of the pandemic that was
question, something like in our 2018 study, we looked at social connectedness and restart, which means years. So there's certainly an element of ASMR is something that could potentially increase feelings of social connection. Now, whether or not that is a good thing, I don't know. So I guess there's two ways to think about this. The first is that if you have a substitute for something that you're not getting in real life, snack, as it were, then that's good, because it might charge your own to actually happen. On the other hand, what it might do is highlight and intensify the feeling of disconnection. So it might inadvertently seek out social connection, be something that actually understands. So the idea that something like ASMR might be universally beneficial is something at the moment something that's really interesting. We need to understand ASMR to but it's not. We really need meaningful social connection. And this is you see it all the time. It's not our literature on social connection. increasingly common. YouTube style social media, which people feel an attachment to people that they know there. It's interesting that going back to brain images and trying to I'm sure a video of somebody into their mind with kids now that they could, see what it's like in society that something that might prepare them and choose anxiety and they don't choose that. It might be that what ASMR is doing for some people in certain contexts it's reducing anxiety in situations like going to the doctor, it's going to the dentist, and the dentist spotlight will be confident in that, which I find funny because a lot of people don't like going to the dentist. So in some ways it might be taking certain social situations that can be difficult, taking them out of the emotional context and making it more kind of more calming and to deal with and following that things that these are the kind of scenarios that will trigger ASMR in their life, and so that's why they kind of infiltrated online ASMR. So there's something about somebody paying close personal attention to you. They're not really interested in you. They're interested in the part of you. And I think that is what is triggering about ASMR is a level of intimacy and personal interest, but it isn't really about you. There's a level of anonymity about it. So a doctor is interested in you as a patient, but they're interested in a very specific problem, like looking at your eye, checking your cranial nerves, or whatever it is. It's not really about you, so the sense of intimacy that can kind of be personalised and normalised. I think is quite interesting.
I really enjoyed this. Our conversation was quite longer. When it comes to psychology, there's very interesting, useful. Now, what I have one stick people inside an MRI scanner brain, and another MRI scanning. So, every contributor is going to be testing the species of MRI because something like that. Meanwhile, I think I've got MRI me and my back, plus a couple of much longer ones from PhD. I actually found I see those and it's hard because we make tingles and we something extra in the MRI scanner that's quite easy to have tingling sensations. My ASMR requires an enormous amount of MRI scanner, which is somewhat impractical and expensive to say the least. This channel where I make videos of MRI scanner. I want it ASMR. I'm starting to understand this better. Definitely now know that why you take ASMR like the web editing approach. It's up to screen. I'm going to take the last times that we've made to the ASMR University websites and so yeah, let's just say our figures like this Julia and perspectives. So the jury's out on the benefits. That's a couple of easy benefits. What can I I think very exciting. Thank you. Actually, a couple of years ago,
Christmas dinner, believe it or not, with my friends. One of them was saying that he was listening and trying to get some videos and stuff to help him sleep. And room's dark and light around it. And suddenly my voice came through to the computer monitor, which obviously stopped him going to sleep. He found out what was going on and then told us about it the following day. Well, the thing is, I'd done those original videos for the medical school, thrown them that way, and never thought about them again. I did not look at the numbers, it was just a job that was done. So we were completely blown away at just randomly loading up YouTube and looking at what had happened over the year or so with absolutely no intervention. Messages. I was just looking at the comments and saying what exactly surprising things for that. The thing that came out with myself was, there's obviously medical students getting the benefit from it, but there seemed to be this recurring theme that people were using to relax, which, I don't know about yourself, but I'm utterly terrified of going to the dentist. And my GP was actually a medical school, he was a great guy, but professionally I like to avoid him. And the concept of people wanting to watch medical videos was very interesting.
Ski also understanding where it's aligned, in particular how it may play part in your cooking.
We're all aware of the doctor as a drug, and particularly in your practice, sometimes you'll have a patient that's very worried, anxious, they need reassurance, and you'll go that little bit further in examining. You'll pull out more of the bells and whistles that we don't routinely do, but we would educate them on. But they're also from an emotional effect. They know that they have been examined. And I think that there is that crossover, laying hands on them. Why is it that physio done on Zoom at the moment, providing progress has less of a benefit than physio doing the same thing face to face, helping the person do the movements, keep hands on. We're a very social species. And part of that, where the people are enrolled in it, but they're sort of examining the camera, so it feels like the person is being examined. I think it's about contact, it's about a connection with someone.
I did tell one of my friends who's a science YouTuber that the audience and still think best to have medical is he requested an anonymous, by the way, that I was going to talk to James and he was very excited. I asked him what he gets from YouTube videos. He replied, they just send you straight to sleep, which might sound like an insult to a regular person, but to a YouTuber falling asleep while watching a video, it's wonderful. You tell me. Hey, wake up. I'm obviously the wrong audience to appreciate the ASMR qualities of the medical video because it just feels like work. That in itself is a lesson. Here are people all over the world dressing up and performing the job that I do in a kind of act. Exactly what I said to videos. I find it interesting. So to see what you're doing, you need suction and endoscope. However, to contain the mess, the current plan for any surgery may involve a sealed glove box. But keeping the blood in isn't the main reason it's keeping the virus out. Airborne microbes have been recorded in the international vintage at 400 and because there's no convection current, you get gravity rise, the air circulates the same way it does on Earth. You can get colonization of bacteria fans can help, and they can also blow the bacteria around. Next, parasites. The illest colonists run into all manner of visual problems caused by parasites, but you can down that spaceflight seriously compromises vision. Spaceflight associated neuroocular syndrome and loss of visual function in space that occurs for a colony. But let's think about more exotic eye problems. Ocular parasites. Now, not being an exobiologist like Dr. L.B. Collier, I was not one to speculate on the biology of the organism, but in the book, early on, L.B. explained that even though humans come from an entirely different biosphere, we haven't co-evolved with life on Venus the way we have on Earth, humans are still walking reservoirs of fluid and nutrients. so we might still be victims to microorganisms just looking for some place to live. She fairly sensibly suggests total isolation by being sealed in a dome where nothing can get in or out, which is always something that made me laugh about M-class planets on Star Trek. I mean, sure, Mr. Data, the air is breathable, but what about freaking bugs that are guaranteed to be in that air? So does something like the ocular parasites exist here on Earth? Unfortunately, yes. Parasitic eye infections, bigger than bacteria, as suggested by the pictures, are explained to not directly be attacking sufferers per se, but just getting all up into your eye holes as they're a nice place to be. And this is indeed the origin of the word parasite, from the Greek meaning eating at someone else's table. Toxoplasmosis, you might know as a disease caused from cats. Many of us will have it at some point, but the only ones who really get a noticeable infection are newborn babies or patients with compromised immune systems, like someone suffering from AIDS. It can result in blindness, just like the infection or illness. Chagas disease, malaria, leishmaniasis, giardia are just some of the other parasites that can affect the eye. We haven't even got to the really gross stuff yet. If you're the kind of person that requires also doctor to synthesize anti-nausea drugs, then it's probably best to go now. I'm going to show you some very picture. Several types of nematode worms can infect the eye, transmitted by an insect burrowing into the skin and then making their way to sweet eye juices to take up residence in fluid-filled chambers, just like in the expanse and diseases on Earth, like river blindness. In the book, the parasites live in the vitreous humor, but in the show, they're in front of the iris. Follow that. Radiation anti-cancer treatment is to protect. In that first video, I said that the oncocytals are perhaps the most fanciful science fiction, which is a shame for cancer is such a huge killer right here on Earth today. Radiation is likely to be a huge problem for space travel. A 2.5-year mission to Mars is estimated to be the equivalent of 18,000 chest x-rays. So without going into the radiation side of it, again, in this season we learned that the oncocytal drugs can have protective from these parasites. Infections like the one we just discussed are treated with anti-worthy drugs like dicarbamazine and antimicrobials. Now, will these appear in anti-cancer drug regimen? Well, maybe we don't know what the rigid, but we do sometimes need prophylactic antibiotics alongside chemotherapy. And there is research ongoing at the moment into enlisting the body's own immune system to stamp out cancerous cells related to trouble. So we could imagine that there is some immune system booster that in the future which allows sufferers to defeat these green bodies themselves. Now, incidentally, if you see any products advertised online today claiming that they can boost your immune system, that's nonsense. It is quite literally science fiction. Funnily enough, in areas of the world where worthy infections, helminths are endemic, we know quite low rates of immune system disorders like microbiology, sclerosis, arthritis, asthma. So unbelievably, research is taking place which deliberately affects sufferers of autoimmunity. Helminths is health. Stuff. LB gets very excited in the book to show something called emergent evolution, where organisms which have evolved separately reach the same solution. A classic example is woodies, insects, bats, birds, also with and this explains why they think they're great human eye, but they are not. That's where life
God, what people, if you teach everyone on earth about the white man, white heaven. Oh, white God.
God bless you, Robert. How are you this fine month? You open it up. Robert, I'm done. That's right. Went to the doctor this month. I only got 6 months to live. Come on, man. They call it bigger, faster, tumor, right? Some other big word in my tiny Negro brain is big lips, Negro now. Doctors say they can't operate. But praise be the white God and his son, white Jesus. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Lucas. You're not contented, are you? Just contagious with the Holy Spirit of our Caucasian saints on a mission from God. And let me share his ways with you. Come, child of God. Come. Please, everybody gather around and get it good news. God is white, and he loves the white man above all others. All right! Yeah! Yeah! Sorry. Don't be sorry, white man. Only niggas and Mexicans is sorry. Be joyful. God loves you. That's why he made his only begotten son in your image. God hates darkness. Well, actually, I'm more of a caramel legend. But I already know the thing. Hear ye. White God is a good God. Even darkness can rejoice. For even one faith with the skin of cold and enter the gates of paradise. He hates his own blackness. And white Jesus the name. Amen. What? That's right, Robert, free man. You must hate thyself to save thyself. But, we're okay? Excuse me? We're okay, right? Oh, cool. Now, who among this flock will join me so that the world can hear this joyful message of love and redemption? I'm off this time. You really done? Praise God, yes I am. He's the one doctor.
What? You're onto something. Tell me more.
But all the difference standing at the front gate. Now you have all white white dinner.
At this point, we're resorting to what I call desperation tactics.
Such as?
I've sent anonymous letters to the government threatening to expose the state government.
I wasn't aware that governor was gay.
Probably. But I figure 10% of the population is gay, and probably about half of people cheat on their spouses. So I figure that plan has about a 5% chance of success. Better than nothing. What? You always say I should have faith. Well, that's me having faith. Random anonymous blackmail.
They turned out the final appeal. The execution date has been set to 2 months.
2 months?
I've had a long time to come to peace with this.
It's not over yet. Why don't you just holler at me?
Shit, we so detached. We used to spend all our yard time together. We used to lift weights together every day. It's about anymore. I think there's somebody else.
Jail niggas, you gay.
Well, you see, the blackness in our skin represents sin, which is why God wants us to hate the black in us.
Yes, yes. Hate the sin of the sinner.
You got to find that guy. You can't go to the school and everything.
Do you believe in God? I believe in God. First of all, I'm gonna live forever. But if I do die, I'm gonna smack God upside the head and go tell him to give me a grilled chicken sandwich and some tacos. When I want something, or I'm afraid about something, I pray. Have you ever prayed? And I dare God to say something. I'll be like, say something, God, say something. Yeah, so. You should pray for your past. God will get him out of jail. You have to listen to him. God. And if God says something, I'll be like this. Take that, God. I'm the speed God strong like. Yeah! Yeah!
Excuse me, Reverend. Hey, I know you. You Armstrong now. I've seen you on the TV news. You the only doctor I ever seen make any sense on the TV news. Hallelujah! And you talk like too. That's very well, monkey. No offense.
Not take. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about expanding your message.
I bet you got white wine.
Yes, I do. Quite right.
Can I see a picture of it?
It's called Operation Black Steel. We should calling it Operation Black Steel. I like that name. We're not changing it. What's your suggestion? Jasmine and Huey's plan to get his friend out of jail. Why is your name first? Because I thought of the name. Calling it Operation Black Steel. Suit yourself. What? Nothing. Operation Black Steel works as follows. Bad J. Milton Burrow will be executed exactly 63 days from now. That night, there'll be a candlelight vigil. Greyhead, who refuses to take an interest in the fate of Brother Shabazz, will probably stay in the car on his Friday. 1 hour. Somebody do something! The cards will have no nothing or the last thing. No idea of that back time. I'll be thinking myself. Done.
We got a problem here.
What happened to that? They don't want nothing left in their life. That's assuming my children break. Yeah, Shabazz K. Wilson-Burroughs was actually interned at the Black Panthers in the early 1970s. He hadn't even earned the black beret in every chapter. He played for those two guys.
Hey, Deputy Sheriff. Let me go apart and I hate all police officers and fucking enforcers. And that's why Eli Goodman, shot this here Deputy Sheriff.
Shabazz never investigated the gunshot or the obvious exposition of prayer that Eli gave. But within minutes, the cops busted down the door to the Black Panther officer charging him and arrested Shabazz for the murder of Deputy Sheriff Gary Fire. Several people witnessed the murder. One had 8mm video footage. Another happened to be a stenographer who had it all transcribed, including Eli's confession, which he oddly enough signed and dated. The murder weapon had Eli's prints all over it, which were clearly visible since he had been enjoying a chocolate donut at the time of the shooting. There was also a receipted cell attached to the gun, and the manufacturer warranty card was filled out, signed, and dated by Eli. During the trial, footage of the incident confirmed the stenographer's notes that Gary's last words were actually Eli Grabinski killed. After only 20 minutes of deliberation, Shabazz K. Wilson-Burroughs sentenced to death.
Man, ain't this a bitch?
Hey, man. White Jesus tells us in order to enter paradise, we must hate ourselves, to save ourselves. Sounds pretty simple, don't it?
Why can't we leave this place? This actually transcribed church.
Buckley had partnered up with famous black conservative Armstrong Elders to market his ministry. Elders was a meeting man. He knew just how to practice focus for the masses.
So you believe God is white?
First of all, white man, let me say that I love you, honor you, envy you, enjoy yourself, and I celebrate you in the name of white.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Look at that. That's a handsome young man, ain't it? Now, if God look like Isaac Hayes, you think his son will look like him?
So black people are...
Hey! Just look around you. That's why we in the ghetto. That's why we in jail. That's why we on UPN. Because God don't like us. You think if God wanted to change that, he couldn't? Hell, he turned water to wine. He could have changed UPN to CBS.
Reverend Rockets' peculiar message of race-based redemption has begun to spread. And fast. How fast? Reverend Rockets will be holding a revival here at Woodcrest Coast Pavilion tonight. Tickets are expected to sell out. Coming up next, time is run out for a condemned man who many say is innocent. After this,
I don't get it. Who would actually follow Uncle Ruckus? Where is Ruckus?
Yeah,
I'm calling you to say goodbye, you. And thanks for everything you did. It means a lot.
it's no. I promise. I can't say nothing because I know that it's well. I promise.
Goodbye.
Yeah, Morpheus, what you about to do? Love me. Good. Nigga, you gay. Wherever promised to take me to the prison and I promised him my friend. But I promised him. I gave him my word I'd be there.
He's gonna die, and there's nothing you can do about it. Martin, hanging out in front of the dive dog chocolate. No, ain't black within you.
Roll age 44 and 45. Let's roll.
Operation Black Steel, the mission liberate Sebastian Miltonboro was important. Because I couldn't get wide.
People say to me, Roger, I said, huh, who says that? Then how do I make it to white hair? Well, start by asking yourself, how is my relationship with the white man? Do you celebrate the white man's goodness every day? Do you stop and thank the white man for the food you eat and the clothes you wear? Huh? Well, if you don't, you go in that case. Now, I'm going to everybody who is white to turn to a white person and say, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, there are those of you who say I'm a race. There are those of you who say I'm wrong for hating them. Well, I call y'all all hypocrites. Because each and every one of you can name 10 niggas you hate right now if you had to.
I never thought about it like that. There's Tyrone, Leon, Big Daddy.
You don't have to admit it, that's okay. Because I know you done already counted off 5 niggas in your head. You like, I hate that nigga. Oh, I hate Odin. I can't stand Russia.
Oh my God, he's right. I hate Usher too. He's right. You got you black people. No, I think I hate them all. I don't like Bucky. I don't like Kobe. I don't like any of them. Now step out of me. Come on, with me.
That's right. Somebody out there is feeling the spirit.
I am. I feel it.
If you black of skin and full of sin, come forth, so I may lay my hands on you. Black, be gone. Praise white Jesus. Now I want everybody to find the nearest black man and lay hands on him. But first, make sure your hand is balled up in a fist so you can beat the black out of his soul. God smiles when you hate blackness, so you beat that dark in the name of the Almighty. Hallelujah. That's right. Ronald Reagan said, beat a nigga ass and go to hell. God is love.
I'm afraid. I want to go with Fred too. You're too young to know which one is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this. It can't be. So, please.
Governor,
What is it?
they found out about Raoul.
Now let us pray. God, I have spent my whole life changing to make me black. And now I see I must hate myself and all those like me. And cause the misery just like the slave of Ronald Reagan. And if any of my ways don't come directly from the Almighty God himself, then may I be struck by lightning right this very day. What just happened?
Would somebody like to get that? I think it's for me.
The lightning bolt is finished last night. He was instructed to give up the too. Doctors find no remaining signs of his cancer. Some call it a miracle. Maybe the hospital.
Get your black banana peeling hands off.
But I still think we can make our own decisions.
I don't know how they found out about us, but we have to end it, Raoul.
Sebastian Miltonboro is not yet free, but for now,
mission had been accomplished. I decided to take the rest of the day off. I wonder if there's anything good on TV.
I want to tell you about the time I almost died. I was
this house one day a week. Nothing. Beyond the States is not much. That's enough. Well, you have the same trip there. What are you looking for?
Hey, howdy, folks! Ladies, gents, cocksuckers, terrorists! I hope you all enjoy the show! Yes, I do! Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Now you always say that you wanna be free. Just you come, and I said you want, baby. You come, and I said somebody come for you. Come to me. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Such a good time. Just wait and see. You come running back like I said you would, darling. You come running back. There is a man with you, baby. You come running back to me. It's on my side. Yes, it is. Now you always say that you wanna be free. Well, I'll come running back. I'll come running back to you. Baby, come on, go ahead. Go right up my life.
Something is always happening. When it happens, people don't always see it or understand it. Accept it. cop out. Scream or no? 99% of the time, doing your job, right? That's fine. So he or she, cream or no, is doing more good out there on the street every day than any lawyer or stockbroker or president of the United States could ever think alike. I'm still chosen. Amen.
I'm switching the bunch. Hey, Mason, come here, get this foreign shit off of my table, niggas, big butt. Job with the same.
A cop lives. A cop sees. The most casual thing. Or remember to later on, and look back. Realize Detective Hobbs. You got a chance. Who's there? Didn't sleep last night, Jones. Everybody used to get these calls to the big house from Washington, D.C.
Oh, you love your Hobbs. You're really good.
Somebody called me last night. Imagine that. Denise. Oh, 4541 South Stedner, apartment 2. Make sure we get in now. Nah, it's probably just some knucklehead saw me on TV trying to impress this girl. How'd that look, by the way? Saw that on 4 different channels. Why is he dead? What you got, John?
I got function for surrender something. 18. Good me.
Slept over and nice new breakfast. Check this out. This is a copycat, you know, prison guards or people that 50 people must have seen that document. Don't you run them?
Make a friend, man. Work for no clubs. No prints on the spawns. Or a whole bunch of museum.
His prints under the system.
Be stupid.
Enjoy it.
Let's do something to think about. Think all these friends are done, they're all the same. And it's sick.
Everything is motive. Sickness.
Chocolate. What is pretty much a risk. That way, hopefully, so that research on the mountains.
Yeah.
You like riddles, you know, puzzles and shit, brain teasers.
Sure, as long as I'm 17.
Why is there space? Mine is for counseling.
What does that even mean?
It's the best of my life. Something. Fucking asshole. It's a pain in the ass, man. I don't know.
breakfast was, and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. After year 1965, months later, goes up to Canada and dies. Days.
I can
Hey, I got something for you. Documentary on race. White man. Young. April race. You got damn much. It's for bust. I'm seeing the sons of the problem we had. The problem was not the end of the race. Bad teeth. Countries and cornflakes. Yeah, give me a number on a Milano. So get an MI on it, you know. Lieutenant. Got your mouth shut. One over the bag, huh? Well, it's the perfect world. No. I mean, and his mouth shut. You okay? Now listen, you still there? Go. Yeah, check and see if there's a sheep on the red line. That's on the book, right? So we'll check the same place. So now what? Same time? Yeah. Oh, second. Wait. Whoever did Moscovich where the museums, could be him. Unlook would be a cop, huh? What? Sure, I'll get some copies. Every chest! Everywhere!
John Bob.
Yes. Talking about the Bob.
and my boss was told.